After a 2-month hiatus of me doing anything but uploading videos, I am back with a new video, this time on Devil May Cry 4. Before heading into DMC4, I played through 5 a lot, so I thought that DMC4 would be a breeze since I was familiar with Dante and Nero. And let me just say how wrong I was, because this game kicked my ass. Even on Devil Hunter, I got destroyed. Just look at these horrible ranks on the missions. To put it shortly, I died a lot, learned a lot, and it was a struggle. DMC4 is wildly different from 5 overall when it comes to the gameplay and function. It's classic Devil May Cry, with Dante being playful, clowning on bosses and demons, while Nero's the more serious / joking type of character. It's a neat contrast between the two. You also see Kyrie, and she looks beautiful. There's a lot I liked and some stuff I disliked about this game. So with that out of the way, enough rambling, sit down and have a pizza, and let's take a deep dive into Devil May Cry 4.
What the hell is this?
Alright, so DMC4 starts off with an opening cutscene of Nero kicking demons' ass and pulling up to the church for Kyrie. Did I mention that she's beautiful, by the way? After some time, Nero's getting ready to get the hell out of there since the preach from the leader is putting him to sleep, and I don't blame him at all because I dealt with that growing up too. Nero has a gift prepped for her and all seems well until Dante shows up to crash into the party. Nero's ready to fight while Credo, who is Kyrie's sister, tells us to deal with Dante and to keep him busy. So to the first mission we start. It's a tutorial mission, and it simply shows you the controls, so sword, gun, movement, dodging, and all of that good stuff. Moving along, Nero and Dante are going band for band, but not really, as Nero's actually trying to hurt Dante while Dante's merely toying with Nero. It's a nice contrast between the two, and it shows up often throughout the story, and it's a good opening mission for the game. I'd like to go on and on about the story, but this video would be over 30 minutes, so I want to keep it short. Nero's part of the story is him trying to hunt down Dante. Through that, you fight many enemies and bosses, which I'll get into later throughout the video. There's one person from the Holy Order tries to capture Nero because he can harness the power of the Yamato, a weapon all too well known in the Devil May Cry series. Owned by Virgil, it is what seals and opens Hellgate, which is why there are demons running rampant throughout the city. The Order intends to use the Yamato for their own personal gains, and through learning Nero has the Yamato, the leader, also known as His Holiness, orders Credo to capture us. And then we fight Credo in a tough fight, but Nero comes out on top. But Kyrie sees Nero fighting Credo and she misunderstands him. Then she is captured by His Holiness as a means to lure Nero to him. Then we fight Agnes in his angel form. He gets his ass kicked, and along the way we fight Dante, and we earn his respect for defeating his difficult boss fight that kicked my ass. Then fight the leader of the Order. Then the leader turns into a giant statue trying to cause chaos. Nero fails to defeat the leader, so he is captured along with the Yamato. So now you play as Dante, and along with that, Credo dies because he was trying to fight His Holiness. So his dying request is that Dante is to save his sister Kyrie and to save Nero as well. We backtrack with Dante, which is pretty much playing Nero's missions in reverse order until we confront the final boss, where Nero breaks out of his containment and defeats the leader of the Order in one final showdown in one of the worst final bosses I've ever played, and oh, we'll get there, alright, but that was the story summarized. I know I left out certain details, but I'll highlight those as I cover both playable characters in the main story, starting with Nero. Alright, so Nero's gameplay consists on juggling enemies in the air, using the egg seed mechanic through revving the Red Queen, and using the blue rose gun to deal chip damage to enemies or bosses. There's multiple combos to what Nero's arsenal is, and it's not just with weaponry but also with his movements. Starting with the Red Queen, he has aerial combos that can keep his enemies in the air for as long as you need, and with the right setup you can technically be in mid-air for probably a long time. I don't say infinite because of the range of the Devil Bringer is on the weaker side, but it still does show the air combos that you can pull off with Nero. Pressing a button at a certain timing after you hit an attack does cause your sword to become slightly strong from a level 1 exceed up to a level 3 exceed. So in other words, you're charging up your sword with each hit and timing. It makes the overall combat more satisfying. With Nero you have the blue rose, which is Nero's gun. Its best use is for dealing chip damage. Holding the button for it will charge up the gun, making it quite useful for getting at shots from long range, and you always want to keep it charged up since it does good damage to boss fights too. And you get some extra damage damage. His final weapons are the Yamato and Devilbringer. The Devilbringer is a hand that you can use to grapple onto demons or get demons closer to you. Its usage is frequent since there are enemies where the best way to fight them is by using the Devilbringer, like these ghost enemies where using the Devilbringer enough times makes them weak and powerless. Some enemies are heavy, so rather than grappling them to you, you grapple yourself onto them. These usually are armored enemies with shields and boss fights. Using the Devilbringer directly on enemies allows Nero to do a cool animation ranging from slamming demons to the ground, punching boss fights really hard, to using an enemy's own weapon against them. Now there are some drawbacks of course in the Devilbringer, which can be leaving yourself open to other enemies attacking you, and for the heavy enemies and bosses you must break down their shield or leave them in a weakened or staggered state, and then you can use the Devilbringer. There's also the Yamato, which can be used briefly when activating your Devil Trigger. It makes your attacks a lot more stronger and you can use new moves, but only in that state of using the Yamato, so you can't always spam Showdown for example. Nero also has movement based abilities as well, which can be double jumping, jumping off of demons, and table hopper, which is triggered when you dodge an attack at the right time. Overall, Nero's combat to me is easy to learn yet hard to master. There's multiple things you must take into account to get the best out of Nero. Certain enemies will kick your ass at first, but with time they become pushovers. Using the Devilbringer is key to get the most out of Nero, as you need it to extend combos. He's a lot of fun to use in this game, and despite me playing 5 before this game, I was able to play well as Nero because of how similar he controlled in DMC5 as well. You get to play as Nero for the first 11 missions and the final 2 missions. His missions are fun and I generally had a good time playing them, so I like playing as Nero, and he is a lot better in DMC5, but he's still really good in DMC4. As for the boss fights, I'll get into them later, and especially a certain one soon, but I think it's about time we talk about Dante.
In the end, we're all satisfied. You are set free.
Dante is the badass, playful, pizza-loving guy. You play as him after Nero was captured in mission 11, and he's playable in missions 12 through 18. Although you pretty much play Nero's missions in reverse order, and there are some slight changes here and there, which narratively makes sense, his levels are fine at best to me since I already played through the levels as Nero. Now when it comes to Dante's combat, he is wildly different compared to Nero, because instead of one dedicated weapon to each button, you must constantly reposition yourself to be able to switch with LT and RT, LT for guns, RT for melee weapons, and then there's the style modes, Trickster, Royal Guard, Swordmaster, and Gunslinger. Are you following me? Good, because I'm not done yet. Dante possesses multiple weapons, which are the Sword Rebellion, which is his primary weapon you'll be using throughout the whole game. Gilgamesh is a set of fists to break down enemy shields. Lucifer, the Sword Backpack, which can be used to attack in multiple enemies, and then there's his guns. The iconic Ebony and Ivory, used to deal chip damage or extend combos, Coyote A Shotgun, which is dealing good damage to enemies, and Pandora, which has many uses and a laser beam, and it also looks like a suitcase. You still following me? Good, because we gotta talk about his styles in greater detail. Royal Guard is a high risk, high reward type of skill. It allows you to perfectly block any attack in the game, and while you can normally block, you can only do it so much. It does reduce the damage taken, but it can also break your stance and leave you vulnerable. Perfectly timing it means you build a meter that can be used against enemies to deal massive damage. Royal Guard is stupidly hard to learn, but when mastered, you can basically win any fight in the game. Trickster is more simple and easy to use. It basically allows you to dodge attacks through using the skill button. You can use it to dodge away from attacks or dodge into the attacks. If you are locked onto an enemy and use it, you can slightly teleport them to get towards them faster, and you can teleport to them directly if you're using Devil Trick. Trickster is a good way to avoid getting hit, and you'll be using this ability the most along with Swordmaster. Speaking of Swordmaster, it's the ability to use a special ability based on the weapons you are equipped with. Rebellion on the ground launches enemies up, and in midair has a combo. Gilgamesh also has the same thing going for it, doing a combo, and the backpack has a combo as well. Gunslinger provides gun abilities based on the weapon you equip. Ebony and Ivory is the only one I really use often because it can be used as a combo extender. The shotgun's an okay ability, and it serves to be a get off of me ability, while Pandora you can go crazy with it. There's his Double Trigger too, which makes Dante stronger for a brief time, generally making certain attacks have different effects. His gameplay is clearly much harder than Nero's, considering you must know what weapons you're using, what style you're using, using the right combos while changing to a style or weapon. He's hard to learn at first, but you can still have a ton of fun with Dante, and I personally had more fun playing as Dante in DMC4 than Nero because of the amount of crazy combos you can do. I love Dante, and who doesn't love Dante? You know, his great personality, his funny moments, and his crazy gameplay. So Dante, he's a great character as always. Although I wish he had more missions like that were unique rather than just recycled missions from Nero. Like, it could have been better, but I'm not complaining too hard about being able to play as Dante though. The overall gameplay of DMC4 felt good. Aside from the clunkiness of moving around at times and finding the camera in some rooms and bosses, I get that this is an old game, but the camera stuff got me disoriented a lot, and I'm glad games don't have fixed camera angles like that anymore. The enemies themselves aren't too difficult to fight, aside from a few exceptions like these armored shield guys and this purple ghost looking thing, but aside from that, they're not too difficult. Since I have the special edition, you can also play as Virgil or Lady and Trish. Virgil is a character that gets me to show my motivation. He's fun as hell like in every game, so go crazy with the Yamato and such. Hey everyone, post-editor pick here. As I was editing this video, I realized that I didn't play as Trish and Lady, and I took the time to play as them but not recording the footage, so I'm gonna have some brief thoughts about them. I think they're fine to play as, but they're not really as fun compared to Nero, Dante, or Virgil. They're characters that I feel like not many would play as, because Dante, Nero, and Virgil are right there, so I just don't see a reason why I would rather play as Trish or Lady. So that's all I have to say. Now back to the video. I'm not going to be going into huge depth about the other characters, as the main focus of the game in this video is Dante and Nero, but now that I've covered both them and their gameplay, I do want to speak more on what I thought of the story. So the story of DMC4 is a story, not one that I hate, but not one that I like either. Kirie is damsel in distress in this game, and I think that works fine since it gives an excuse for Nero to actually, you know, progress in the story and for me to play as Dante. Not much happens in the early game as you're hunting Dante. Well, his holiness gains crazy power and you stop him both as Dante and Nero at the end. There's obviously some great moments that are iconic in the series, like the "what the hell is this" line, where Dante using the Lucifer backpack to make a heart, and the whole Pandora's box weapon reveal. Those are great moments. Dante always being the playable character got me hooked when he was on screen, and Nero's seriousness was a nice contrast to it. And overall, I think the story is fine for what it is. There are some questions that go unanswered, like why does Kirie never ask what happened to Kratos, or why does she never acknowledge it? I could ask the same for Nero. You can tell the story felt rushed because of that, and while I still think the story was fine, Kratos' death being left out after DMC4 and how Kirie had no screen time in DMC5 while basically ignoring the fact that Kratos died is a strange decision. Why kill him off if the characters basically treated his death like nothing? Another question I had was, how did the Yamato get in the hands of Agnes and the Holy Order? Now, the second question could be related to DMC3 or some outside external source, so since I haven't played or read whatever it was, I'll assume it's answered in that game, but it's weird that DMC4 never tells you how it got into the hands of Agnes and the Holy Order. The villains were whatever. I mean, it felt like it was a Saturday morning cartoon that I was watching, despite the savior turning into a large statue and all. So in other words, when it came to the story, it felt a lot to leave desired. Not the greatest story, but just decent at best. The boss fights of DMC4 are hit or miss, but at the same time you fight them twice because of playing as Dante with going through Nero's missions in reverse order. Burial is the first boss outside of the tutorial. He's not the most difficult boss fight as Dante, but with Nero he can be a little bit annoying on higher difficulties because of how far knocked back you can get, and since the double bringer has poor range, it can be really bad if you get hit constantly. But as Dante, his attacks are much easier to dodge thanks to Trickster and Royal Guard, but it's a good first boss to introduce you. The next boss is this anchorfish looking frog, and it's an okay boss, really not too difficult. His attacks are predictable and easy to dodge. It may disappear from the map sometimes, but that's more annoying than difficult, so it's not a good boss, and it's a similar experience with both characters since there aren't any major differences since it's recycled with the exact same patterns and attacks. Fighting Agnes in a chamber is a Nero exclusive fight, and it's not a good boss fight since you're just a sitting duck waiting for one of its knives to be available for a double bringer, and you can do this repeatedly until he's dead, so it's a boring fight while also not directly attacking it with your sword. And yes, you can attack the glass panel to do damage, but why do that when the double bringer does damage? Next is the flower boss, and it's a decent fight I like because it's fairly difficult and not too punishing. It leaves itself vulnerable throughout the fight, and while it may go outside of the arena to charge at you, the attacks are fairly easy to dodge, so you can unleash all hell on the boss. And it is one of the better fights in the game. Dante kicked my ass, I'm not gonna lie. His fight is the one I had a lot of trouble with. He's a hard punisher, and you think you can easily punish him, but he's a frustrating fight is all I'm going to say. Maybe I suck at the game, which I probably do, but this fight kicked my ass, and I hope I'm not the only one that had a similar experience with fighting Dante as Nero for the first time. Kratos is definitely a tough fight, since it's a one-on-one in a small arena. Kratos punishes you for hard mess-ups, and the boss has a high risk, high reward type of thing going for it. But it's one of those bosses I'd come back to, and it's a really fun boss. Well, it's not easy, but I think when you get better at it, it becomes really fun. Agnes in his angel form is a tough fight as usual. Using the knives can stagger him, and it gives you an opportunity to attack him like crazy. He does have some annoying attacks here and there while you're in a cramped arena fighting the camera, but it was overall a challenging fight. His holiness was a really annoying fight, as you had to break down his shield multiple times, use the double bringer a few times, and call it a day. Breaking the shield itself was an annoying process because in DMC4 the double bringer's reach was really bad, and he launches attacks at you while you try to get to him. He has two little things that you shoot with the blue rose to grapple on, but when he launches those attacks at you, those things that you can grapple on, they have a short time limit, and you must grapple to them so you can get to his holiness and then break down his shield, and it's a really annoying process, and I really didn't like first holiness fight. After that fight, you play as Dante and fight the bosses recycled, but in reverse order. So I'll skip directly to Agnes because that fight is different compared to Nero's version of it. The fight is slightly different since you can't throw knives at him. There are some attacks that are seen here that weren't in the Nero fight, so it's a little different, but I still thought it was an enjoyable fight. I also got to bring up the cutscenes prior to and after this fight because it's some really good stuff. While Nero's hell-bent on killing Agnes for capturing Kyrie, and rightfully so, Dante just messes with him and rage baits him while beating his ass, and I love it. Seriously, Dante's scenes in this game were an absolute blast. Anyways, here's a savior, and boy, I did not like this fight. It was a lot of waiting and being patient to attack a certain blue part of the statue while constantly having to move platform to platform. It was a hard time at first, but eventually the fight was manageable and I eventually took care of it. It wasn't enjoyable to me at all, but after that we finally get back to Nero, and I want to take some time to say how dog shit the last two missions are. The 19th mission is a boss rush, so you fight the same bosses you fought early as Nero, then as Dante, and now as Nero again. Like I said, the boss fights are on the weaker side in terms of how good they are, so fighting these bosses 3 times in a game that's at least 10 hours long is an interesting design choice. I didn't mention the whole Mario Party like way to proceed to the next room. It's just not good game design, but I digress. The final boss is, well, a pain in the ass. I'm not one to drop games, but while playing it, I was considering just dropping the game because of how much I hated this fight. Okay, maybe I may be over exaggerating, but that just goes how much to show I don't like this fight. This fight is similar to the first fight of His Holiness where he had the shield, but it's even worse because he has more annoying attacks, constantly recovers his shield a lot faster, and like I said again, Nero's Devil Bringer range sucks. I know I'm repeating it, but it's true. His second phase is harder to dodge because he has stronger attacks and they're a little faster, and you also have a time limit to break the shield, so if he recovers his shield, you have to sit through his ultimate again. You use the Devil Bringer multiple times like in the first fight, so it's technically a recycled fight, so yay, I guess. Once you take him down, you fight the savior statue and you parry both of his arms, which is fine I suppose, since it basically feels like a scripted sequence. The ending was nice however, with Nero keeping the Yamato and going his separate ways from Dante, and he also reunited with Kyrie, so that's good to see. Overall, DMC4 is a good game with a bit to be desired. If I had to rate this game, I'd give it a 7 out of 10, which is a good game with a few major drawbacks like an unfinished story, disappointing boss fights, recycled boss fights, and the overall clunkiness of the movement. But I still left having a good time. The issues I had with this game aren't to take away that I enjoyed playing through it. I loved the combat, the cutscenes were great to watch, Dante's funny moments were great, and Nero's character was great as it was his debut in the Devil May Cry series. The game has its own charm, and I can see why people absolutely love this game so dearly. Nero was a good character and had a great debut to the Devil May Cry series. So again, DMC4 is a good game and I enjoyed it even while pointing out the issues that I had with it. So would I recommend playing this game? Absolutely. It may take some replay sessions and commitment to truly appreciate the game, so my opinion may change in the future, but I still think this game is good. I hope this game gets a remaster at some point because I'd love to play that someday. But for now, that's all I have to say about this game. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like the video, and hey, why not subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one. So as always, enjoy yourselves and have a good one.